Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Hi again, if we haven't met yet. My name is Abby, and I'm so excited to have you here today. So today, I'm going to show you how quickly and easily you can set up your service providers in Mangomint. When it comes to managing your staff, Mangomint really makes it so easy for you. We really have everything you need to customize your staff permissions, your staff schedules, customize their services that they're offering, their compensation, and so much more. And the other really cool thing is that Mangomint supports all kinds of different business models as well. So maybe you have some employees that are working at your salon, or maybe you have a booth renter model and you're just renting out chairs or rooms or whatever it may be. Or maybe you have kind of a combination and you have more of a hybrid model. Whatever business model you have, Mangomint makes it so easy to manage all of your service providers. So in today's webinar, I'm going to show you how to add service providers in your Mangomint account and set up your service providers and customize their settings so that they can get up and running with Mangomint right away. So let's go ahead and jump into Mangomint right now, and we're going to set up a service provider. So now that we're in the Mangomint app, I want to start out here with really the first thing. So the first thing that we want to do is actually add our staff members, and then we're going to invite them. So one thing I do want to point out here as well is that in order to be able to manage staff members, you do need to be an admin on the Mangomint account. So let me just show you guys what I'm talking about here. I'm here in my calendar, but then let me go over to settings, and I'm actually going to show you where you can see all of the staff members that are set up for the account. So if you go right here to staff members, you can see that I have a few staff members here. I'm just going to click through these real quick. And what you want to notice here is this user type. So this one is a normal user. But if I click over here to this one, this is one of my users. This user, Abby, is actually an admin. So you can see that right here. So I just want to call that out whenever you are setting up staff members and setting up those service providers, as we're going to go into today, you do need to be an admin on the Mangomint account. Typically, I will say what we usually see is that most people, when they start up a Mangomint account, they'll usually only have 1 or 2 total admins on the account. And then the rest of the users that you set up are going to be those normal users that I showed you. So if you go here, you can see that again with Harriet Love. So just kind of some background on that. And then the normal users, of course, this is, you can think of an admin that's typically going to be the business owner or a manager for the business. However, the normal users, that's going to typically be somebody such as service providers that we're going to go over today. It could be a front desk staff member, for example. Maybe you have a front desk coordinator, different people like that. And really a normal user, you can think of this as somebody that you want to be able to customize their permissions to some degree. So you don't want to be giving them access to everything within the entire Mangomint account. So if there's somebody where you want to restrict their permissions, their access to the data a little bit, then those would probably be normal users. So let's say that as an admin, I would like to go ahead and add a new staff member who is going to be a service provider at our demo salon here at the Seven Lakes Salon and Spa. So in order to do that, first you'll just click on Add Staff Member. So I'm going to go ahead and click that now. So now that I've clicked Add a Staff Member, we just need to enter some, quick details about the staff member. So let me go ahead and I'll just add, their name, their email address, phone number, things like that. So let's go ahead and add that now. I'm just going to add the first name. Then we'll go ahead and add the last name. We will be making a service provider called Courtney Hall. And then I will go ahead and just add Courtney's email address here. I'm just going to use a demo test email address for, demo purposes here. Okay. Perfect. So now I've added the email address, and keep in mind that email address that you add, that is where this staff member is going to receive their invite to actually join the Mangomint account. So you want to make sure you've got that correct. And then we'll just add a phone number here. I'll just do an example phone number there. And then for the user type, of course, we are going to keep this as a normal user because this is a service provider that we're going to set up here. Now, next, when you get here to this toggle, we have this toggle here that says is service provider. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that toggle. It's really important, we do want this to be a service provider. And something else that's really important about this is that you need to enable this toggle in order to actually be able to assign services to this service provider. And we're going to go get into that a little bit later in the webinar, but make sure you definitely enable that toggle if this is going to be a service provider. And also something else to point out here is that when you enable that toggle, keep in mind that will go towards your count of how many service providers you have on the account, which will affect your billing. So as you guys have probably seen, we offer different plans that are available, and each plan comes with a different amount of service providers. So just keep in mind that whenever you do enable that toggle, that will go towards the count of your service providers for your Mangomint subscription. So I always just like to explain that. Next, we want to choose whether or not to enable this service provider in online booking. So I'm going to leave this enabled. I do want to allow Courtney to be in online booking. So we're definitely going to keep that turned on. Something else to point out as well is that some of you guys who are watching, you might be using our built-in time clock feature that we have to track your staff's hours. If you're using the time clock, then at this time, you would actually see another field here where you could set up the time clock pin for that service provider. But in this example, we are not using the time clock right now. We're not using that feature for the 7 League Salon and Spa. So that's why you do not see that field. I just always like to bring that up as well. And then I'm going to click here on additional options. You're definitely going to find as you get to know Mangomint, you're going to see there's a lot of times where you can click on additional options, or it might say advanced options in some cases. And there's a lot of really good additional, settings in here that are maybe a little bit more advanced or a little bit more nuanced, but really good things to check out. I highly encourage you always take a look at those additional settings that are available. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now I have a couple more settings that we can see here. This one is to require a credit card in online booking. You can enable or disable that. I'm going to just leave that enabled. And then this is a really cool one as well. You can actually select the gender of the provider if you want to. Now, why would you want to do that? There's different reasons for this, but one of the most common examples that we see a lot is that, let's say, for example, you're working at a spa that offers a lot of different massage services. So it's really common, and we see this often, where you want to use this setting. A lot of different businesses do want to use this setting so that they can actually allow their clients to select the preferred gender of their service provider if they want to, especially that is often coming up a lot when it comes to a massage situation. Sometimes somebody who, identifies as female, maybe they want to have a female provider, whatever it may be. So this will let you do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and set the gender of our service provider as female, and then I will just go ahead and click create. All right, so now that we've done that, this is going to give us the option to send an invite to the service provider. And this is really nice. You can see the email address that we already set up. So once I send that invite, then Courtney is going to get an invite to Mangomint at that email address. And so I really love that. It's going to be super easy, because what will happen then is, after I'm going to go ahead and send this, and it says here, this will allow Courtney to create a login for Mangomint. So I'm going to send that, and it's really nice because right away, Courtney has now received an email invite to Mangomint. She's actually going to have in the email, there will be a button. It's going to say activate my account. So all she needs to do is tap that button, and then she'll be able to create her own login for Mangomint and set up her own password that is associated with this email address. So super, really easy to invite your staff members to Mangomint. Something else that I always love to encourage as well here before we check out the other settings is that it's really nice to add a profile photo for your staff members, especially any service providers that you have. I think this is really important. This is going to appear in online booking. It's just going to kind of personalize the experience, especially when you have clients who are kind of looking through your online booking and looking at your different staff members that they can work with, it's always really nice to have a profile photo. So I'm just going to add one for Courtney right now. All you do is click on that, and then I'm uploading a file that I have here with Courtney's photo. So I've uploaded that now. You can see that instantly update. So that's just a really nice way to further personalize, the whole Mangomint experience, because anytime you and all of your different staff members are using Mangomint, you'll be able to see Courtney's photo. And then, of course, when Courtney is in online booking, all of her potential clients can see her photo as well. So definitely recommend doing that. Okay. So now we've added some basic details for this service provider, Courtney. So now let's go ahead and customize some other settings for this staff member. So where I want to go next is let's head over to the locations tab. So I'm going to click on that right now. And so the reason that I'm seeing this locations tab is because at the Seven Lakes Salon and Spa, I do have multiple locations set up in my account. If you only had one location set up, then you would not see that tab to set the locations. But in my example, I actually have these 3 locations set up here. And I can actually go here. If I go over to settings real quick, I'll just show you where I set that up. I go to business setup, and then I'll go here to locations. And this is where you can manage all of your locations. So I'm just going to scroll down so you guys can see that. And I do have these 3 locations. Okay, perfect. So let me go back here. Let's go back to Courtney. Click on the locations again. So what we can do here is when we're in the locations tab, we can assign this service provider to one or more locations that they're going to work at. For our example here, let's just say that this service provider, Courtney, is only going to work at one location. If I wanted to, though, let's say she wanted to work at additional locations in the future, let's say, for example, that all these locations are actually in the same city. So it's possible for her to easily go between them. If I wanted to enable her for another location, I would just tap this and I would just enable the location like that. So I'm going to go ahead and disable that for now. And for now, she's just going to work at the main location. Okay, so next, let's go and head over to the notifications tab. And when you're in the notifications tab, this is where you can customize all of the different notifications that this service provider is going to receive. So if you look here, you can actually control which SMS and email notifications the service provider is going to receive when clients check in and when bookings occur as well. So you can see, you can enable these as you want to. This is super helpful so they can be aware as bookings are coming in. And also, they might want to check and make sure that everything looks good in the booking. This is also really helpful. I've heard of some situations that you guys are probably familiar with where, let's say, for example, you don't have a dedicated front desk staff, that works full time. And so there's certain situations where it's helpful for the actual, a stylist, a service provider to actually check and, be aware of the bookings that are coming in. Maybe you have somebody who always books a full highlights, for example, but you notice they only booked partial highlights. And so you want to maybe check that out. Maybe you want to check with the client, make sure they book correctly. So you can definitely enable those notifications for them if you want to. So something else you can do too, and let me just go ahead. I'm going to enable all of these because I think it's really helpful for Courtney. It's going to keep her more informed about everything that is going on at the Seven Lakes Salon and Spa. So I'm going to enable all of these notifications for her. Something else you can do here is this last one says send mobile app notification when a new message is received. So this last setting here, this is for our two-way texting feature. So if you're using our two-way texting add-on, and if you enable this setting, then this service provider is going to be able to see mobile app notifications whenever a new message is received for all of the different clients that they have access to. So I'm just going to go ahead and I will enable that as well for Courtney. Okay, so I've enabled all of the different notifications for Courtney. Now let's go ahead and look at the permissions for this service provider. All right, so we are here on the permissions tab now for Courtney. There's just a little bit more setup that we want to do and a lot of customization that we can do as well. So you can see here, I'm going to scroll down on some of these permissions, and you're going to see that we have some various permissions that are enabled for our new service provider, Courtney. And you'll also see that we have a lot of permissions that are disabled as well. So we basically make it super easy for you when you're setting up the permissions. You can go through each section, and what you're going to notice, for example, right now we're looking at the calendar section. This is a grouping of a bunch of different permissions that are related to the calendar. So we've broken all of the permissions, all the different access to the different data in Mangomint. We've broken that all down into the different kind of core areas of the Mangomint platform to make it super easy for you. So as an admin, you can completely customize the staff permissions and you can restrict access wherever you need to. So I'm just going to go and scroll down and you can see some of the different areas where you can control those permissions. So we have client permissions, sales, we have messages, reports, products, gift cards, packages, memberships, cash drawer, payroll, forms, resources, email marketing, got some newer permissions that we've added with some newer releases over the last few months. And then we also have settings and user profile permissions as well. So a lot of different permissions that you can customize as the admin for the different service providers you can set up. And this is really cool because you can set up different permissions for every service provider that you add. So now I want to have us look at another service provider that I've set up previously. And I'm going to click on Harriet Love here because I actually want to show you in Harriet's permissions tab. We actually have kind of some standard suggested permissions that you could use for a service provider. And so in Harriet, let me actually click on the details too. You can see that Harriet is another staff member and she is another normal user type as well. So she's actually, let's say she's another stylist at the Seven Lakes Salon and Spa. And so let's just go and click on her permissions. And I want to show you some of our suggested permissions for a service provider. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through these, but you can see on the different sections on the calendar, you can see we've enabled can book and change own appointments, can create and change her own time blocks, and can manage the wait list. Then I'm just going to scroll down here. For the sales permissions, you can see that we've enabled a couple different permissions here. So can view individual sales on the calendar and can start a checkout and modify sales. So this is really helpful for her. Again, we don't want to give her access to all the different sales permissions, but we do want her to have permissions to a couple of these. Now I'm going to scroll down to messages. So we're going to allow Harriet, she can view individual conversations and can send messages. However, in this example, we have left can view all conversations. We've left that disabled. So that means that she does not have access to the messages screen right now. However, if you wanted to give access to any of your service providers to the entire messages screen, you would definitely want to make sure that this is enabled so they can view all conversations happening across all of the different clients. Okay, then we're going to scroll down here. We are not giving her reports or product permissions, nor are we giving her gift card, packages, or membership permissions. And we're not going to enable these ones as well either for the cash drawer and for payroll. But for the form section, we do often recommend for a service provider, we recommend that you would enable the setting to can view individual form submissions. So it says, view form submissions attached to appointments that are visible to this person, so to this particular service provider. But you'll see it does not grant access to the form submission screen. So they cannot view all the form submissions. If you wanted a service provider to see all the form submissions, you would want to enable this setting right here. And then for the resources permissions, we have enabled can view resources on the calendar. So again, it says view resources such as rooms or chairs you have, different machines, whatever it may be. You can view them as separate columns on the calendar. So that one is really helpful for staff members, for service providers. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. We're not enabling any of these other permissions for Harriet. However, on the user profile permissions, we do often suggest that for a service provider, you do enable this last one here, can view own daily / weekly totals. So, as it says here, it grants access to the daily totals and weekly totals, such as the number of services, service revenue, tips, all of that really helpful information for a service provider. They'll be able to view that from their mobile app menu. So that is really helpful. And we actually hear directly from a lot of service providers who are using Mangomint that they really, really love that feature and that ability to see that right in the mobile app. So that is another kind of suggested permission for a service provider. So I will also say here, these are just some suggested settings for your average service provider that you're setting up. This is completely customizable to your needs. Yes, this is completely customizable to your needs. So I will also recommend that if you want to get a super in-depth look at our staff permissions, we actually have another webinar. It's another feature spotlight webinar that we have. It's called Staff Management and Permissions, and that is on the Mangomint webinars page. If you look at our feature spotlights page, you'll see all of our different recordings for these webinars. So I kind of went over this pretty quickly just to keep this moving along for you. But if you want a really in-depth look at staff member permissions specifically, definitely take a look at that webinar. And we also have a ton of in-depth content about this in our learning center at mangomint.com. So those are just kind of, again, some suggested settings for your average service provider that you might be setting up. Of course, you're going to want to go in there and customize that for your business. So kind of go in there, play around with that and see what makes sense in terms of the level of access that you want to give to your service providers. Okay, so next, let's move along to another topic here in terms of our setup. So next, I want us to customize the services that our service provider is going to perform. So let's leave permissions and we're actually going to click on the services tab right here. And actually, I'm going to go back to, I realize we're still here at Harriet Love. Let me go back to Courtney Hall. This is the new service provider we just set up. So we just looked at the permissions. Now we're here at the services tab. So what you guys will see here is because Courtney is a brand new service provider that we just added here, you're going to notice that, since we just added her, we do not have any services enabled for this provider at all. So you can see all of these are disabled. So right now, Courtney is not offering any services. But you can quickly enable this service provider for the specific services that they're going to offer. So if you look here on the right side, I really love this button that we have here. If you click on Enable All, this button, it's super convenient because this is going to let you quickly enable all of the different services in this entire service category for this service provider. So let's say in our example, Courtney Hall, she is a hairstylist. So she's even though we offer a lot of different types of services at the Seven Lakes Salon and Spa, in this example, Courtney Hall is just a hairstylist. So she's, really specializing in all kinds of hair, hair cutting, hair coloring, extensions, all types of different hair related services. So I'm going to go ahead and just enable all for haircuts. So let's go ahead and do that. And then you can see all the different services she's providing just within that service category. Okay, now we have styling. So I'm also going to enable all of the different styling services for Courtney. Perfect. You can scroll down and we can just see all those different services. And then we have a color category. So I definitely want to enable all of the services in this category as well. Perfect. So I've now enabled all of the color services. And we'll just scroll down. And then we also have a hair extensions category. So I would also like to enable all of those. And again, keep in mind, we're just doing this kind of the faster way because in this example, Courtney Hall, she does offer a lot of different types of hair services. But let's say, for example, there was a specific service, only one within this category that this service provider actually offered. It's really easy to only just click one of them, for example, or a couple of them if you want to. So super easy to customize that. I'm just going to go ahead and enable all of them. And if you ever wanted to disable everything at once, you could also disable that service category. Let me go ahead and cancel that. I'm going to leave these enabled for now. Okay, perfect. So I'm looking here. I think that is all the hair related services for our hairstylist here. So we have now enabled all of those. So that's perfect. So I'm going to scroll back up here. And let me scroll up to the top here. Okay, and so I think this is where it gets really cool because now that we've enabled a lot of different services for Courtney Hall, the really nice thing is that you can further customize their services setup. So you can really get creative with it and, use tailor this to your needs. It's super flexible. So let's say, for example, that, let's say at this hair salon, maybe you use a tiered system where you have like a level 1, level 2, et cetera, stylist, where typically your senior stylists are going to be charging more for their services. So instead of using the default price that you see for the service, you can actually customize the service price for this particular provider. So let's look at one of our services and I'll show you how to do that. So let's pick up one of our haircuts, for example. Let's just go to the long cut. It's the first one right here. And what we can do is actually, we have the price set to $90, but let's say, for example, that Courtney Hall is a little bit more senior. And so we do want to bump that up. For Courtney, we want to bump up her price to $100. So I can easily do that. Okay, so now the new price is $100 and you know that that's not the default anymore because there's a little reset to default button right there. So now that I've updated that in the service provider settings, I can actually show you what it looks like as well when we look at the settings for this service. So let's go over to settings and I'll show you what I mean here. So let's click on services. And then we're going to find that same service we were just looking at, the long cut. If we go here, and then I'm actually going to click on staff, and then I'm going to scroll down. And what you guys will see here is you'll notice that the default price was $90. So, Andre's offering it for $90. Harriet Love is offering it for $90. But if we look here at Courtney, our new service provider, you can see that because we bumped up that price to $100, now Courtney's special price for this long cut is showing as $100. So really easy to customize that if you ever need to offer different pricing, based on different service providers. It's super easy to do that. So let me go back to my settings here, and I'm going to go back and click on staff members, and we'll find Courtney again. Okay, let's go back to services. So the other really cool thing about this is that you can make other customizations for this service provider as well. So, given that we have our provider, Courtney here, who specializes in hair services, we might want to consider also customizing Courtney's processing and finishing times for certain color services as well. So that's super easy to do in Mangomint. So let me show you what I mean. Let's scroll down now. We're in our haircuts here, but I'm going to go back and find our color category. All right, so we've got styling. Okay, great. So we're here at the color category. And then let me find a service that we want to customize here. So let's take full highlights. I think this is a perfect example right here. So if I want to do that, what I'm going to do is click on additional options. And right here, this is where you can adjust the processing time and the finishing time if you want to. So right now, this is set to 1 hour, and then the finishing time is set to 15 minutes right here. But if you wanted to, you could change those times. And again, when you see this processing time here, really that processing time, all that means is that the provider, if you set up that processing time, that means that the provider could take on another client during that processing time, and they could be booked in the online booking during that time. So let's say, for example, maybe we want to bump this to 1 hour and 15 minutes, for example. So this is really helpful because Courtney, if she wanted to kind of double book herself, she could actually, put on the initial color, and then as she's waiting for the processing to finish, Courtney could actually go ahead and book another client. Maybe she wants to do another haircut or something that would only take 1 hour and 15 minutes or less. Maybe she wants to fit in a 45-minute haircut, for example, during that processing time. So it's really easy to customize the specific processing time for Courtney for this particular service. And then of course you could change the finishing time if you want to. It's really easy to adjust that. So I'm just going to adjust that. You can go through and just tailor that to your needs. So I think that's really helpful. So that's just another way that you can customize all of the different services that you're setting up for the service provider. Okay, so now we've added a lot of different services for Courtney Hall. Next, I want to show you guys how to set up a service provider's work hours. I think, of course, this is super important. So let's jump over to the work hours now. All right, so here we are. We can see Courtney Hall here. And I say that this is really important because honestly, until you actually finish setting up the work hours for this service provider, they're not going to be available at all in online booking. So you want to make sure that you get those work hours set up and, set up at their shifts and things like that so that they can be available in online booking. So let's go ahead and just set up some shifts for this service provider. So what we're going to do is we are going to add some repeating shifts on certain days, basically. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. So let's say, for example, in our demo, we'll just say that Courtney Hall, she does work a pretty predictable schedule. So let's say, for example, that she's going to be working on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add a shift here. So it says, what would you like to edit? You can do repeating shifts, or of course, if you wanted to, you could just edit that day only. I want to add repeating shifts because in general, she's going to be working most Mondays. So we'll go ahead and add a shift here. And then I'll just go ahead and add that. And there's different ways you can structure this. I'm just going to add, let's say, for example, that on Mondays, she's just going to work a very standard shift. Let's say she's going to work from 9 to 4. So we'll go ahead. It's super easy to go in here and find the time that you need to. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll just save it. Okay, now she's also working on Tuesdays. So I'm also going to click repeating shifts again. Let's go ahead and add a shift. Now, let's say, for example, I think this is really cool because when you're adding a shift, let's say, for example, that she likes to take a lunch break on Tuesdays. If you wanted to, you could actually set up your shift here, and that will basically build in the break time if you want to for lunch break or whatever it may be. So, for example, I'm just going to show you an example of how you would do that. You could set the start time to 9 a.m. and then let's put the end time at 12. And then if we want to kind of have a built-in lunch break for Courtney, then what we can do is we'll add another shift. So when you click that, you're adding another shift on that same day. So on all Tuesdays going forward. And then what we can do is we could start it at 1, maybe you could start at 12:45, whatever, however long, you could start it at 12:30 to kind of build in that 30 minutes or hour lunch break, whatever it may be. So I'm just going to set this to 12:30, and then we'll go ahead and update her end time. Let's say she's out the door around 4:30 p.m. So we have something like that. So this is really nice because now she will, not be scheduled from 12 p.m. to 12:30. So kind of a built-in lunch break. So just an example of how you can build in those breaks or other times where your service providers will not be booked if you want to. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to add one more repeating shift for Saturdays. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Okay, add a shift. Let's go ahead and let's say her schedule is a little bit later on Saturdays. So she's going to come in at 11, and then she's going to actually be here till 6 p.m. All right, so we'll go ahead and choose that. Perfect. And then we will add that Saturday shift. So as you can see, now we've added 3 different shifts for the different weeks. And so as we kind of scroll through the upcoming dates here, the upcoming weeks, we can see all of those repeating shifts for Courtney. So super easy and fast to set up all the different shifts for your service providers. Also, I was mentioning the lunch breaks, and there's something else that I was just thinking of, that another idea for handling lunch breaks, for example, or any other type of recurring break time, something where you don't want them booked during that time, you could actually use time blocks for those as well. So let me actually hop over to the calendar and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So let's look at Harriet, or no, here we go. Let's pick Harriet here. Let's say that you wanted to give Harriet kind of a built-in lunch break every Thursday. So I can actually go here, and then I'm going to just click on the calendar where I want to add that time block. And then let's click create time block. And so you can set the duration, and then you can even put the reason if you want to. I'm just going to say lunch break right there, create time block. And then what we can do here is if we want to make that repeating, so every Thursday, Harriet will have a lunch break, you can just go and click repeating right there. And then you can specify the frequency. I'm just going to repeat it every week. Of course, you could update that however you need to, and then just save. So now you're going to see that I can even, when I jump ahead on the calendar, now when I go forward, 3 weeks, for example, you can see that Harriet's lunch break is there repeating. So that's just another way to use the time blocks to set up those breaks instead of using the shifts that I was showing you. So a lot of different options for you. Okay, so let's go back to our settings here for our service provider, Courtney Hall. So we've now set up all of her work hours for now. And of course, if we want to go back and adjust that, it's really easy to do that. Let's now take a look at the compensation. So we really make it really easy in Mangomint to adjust the compensation settings for every service provider that you have. So let's go over there right now. So we are here in the compensation tab. Again, this is for Courtney Hall. So no matter how you compensate your staff members, in Mangomint, we really support all kinds of flexible compensation models. So as you can see here, you can adjust everything. So you can adjust the service commission, product commission if they get that. If you want to pay them hourly or if you pay them a salary, however you set it up, whatever type of compensation model you use, you can accommodate that here. So in this example, I'll just show you kind of a pretty average example here. So let's go ahead and let's enable service commission for this service provider, Courtney. So I'll just click enable right there. And then what I can do here, you have a couple different options, but let's say that she gets a basic service commission. So if I wanted to enable that, I would choose between these, but for this example, I'm going to choose the basic service commission. And then let's just say she gets 45%. So I'll just add that right there. So super easy to add that. She'll get that for all the different service sales. And then this commission is going to be applied by default for all of the different services performed by the staff member. Of course, you could also use the sliding scale commission instead. You could go through and set that up, but I'm going to keep this more simple and just use the basic service commission for now. So let me add that back in there. So the really cool thing is that once you enable the basic service commission, it's also super easy to set different commission rates per service for specific service providers. So let me show you what I mean by that. So right now we're here. We're in our staff members here, but I'm actually going to go to the services and let's click on that now. And then I'll show you how you can actually customize that. So let's see here. So what you guys will see here is that right now I have this commission set to 45% for the long cut, because as I just showed you guys, if you go back here to compensation, you'll recall that we set that to 45%. But if I want to change that, I can just go right here, click on the additional options, and then I can actually just go and change that if I want to. So if I wanted to bump that up to 47%, for example, I could, or maybe I want to bump it down to 43%. I could do something like that. It's super easy to do that. And again, we now know that we've changed that default setting because we see this new option to reset to default. So really easy to adjust that for different services if you want to, if you don't always want to use that default base commission there. All right, so I think this is a great time to check our chat and just see if any questions have come in. And I think I see that a couple did come in here. So let me take a look at that real quick. Okay, so somebody has asked, can you change the order of how staff members appear in the calendar screen? Okay, that is an excellent question. So yes, you can do that. And I'll actually show you how you can do that. You can actually change the order that your staff members appear in from right here on this screen. So when you're here setting up in settings and staff members, all you need to do is you can actually just click and drag the staff member and you can change the order there. So you can just do that. Let's go ahead. Ooh, there we go. Took a second to load there. So now you can see that has changed. But then let me go back to the staff members, I can put Courtney first, for example. So now I've done that. And then you guys will see that now Courtney appears first in here. So something important to keep in mind, though, that doesn't just impact your calendar that you and your staff members will see. This will also affect the order that your service providers will appear in the online booking. So just keep that in mind in case you're making any changes to that. Okay, looks like there is one more question. Somebody has asked, what if my business is going to be closed on a certain day and I want all of the service providers to not be working that day? Okay, that's a really good question as well. So there's actually a really cool tool that we built for this to kind of save you a lot of time. So of course, let's say you had an upcoming holiday or a closure. Maybe you're closed for, some type of maintenance in the building, or maybe you're closed because you're doing a team training day or something like that. You could, of course, block out the individual calendars for every single staff member, but there's actually a much faster way to handle this. So if you click on settings, and then you're actually going to click on calendar and appointments. And then if you click on quick tools, we're going to click that. You can see that we have this set staff to not working setting basically. And it says this tool allows you to set specific staff members to not working for a single day or a custom date range. So you can actually just go ahead and use this. You can set the days off. So of course you'll want to pick the locations. Let's say, for example, we're just going to close the main location for a specific day. You can go here and you can just adjust all of the staff members that you want to be set as off for that day. And then of course, you'll see that all of them are just selected by default to further, save you time if you want everybody to be off. And then you'll just select the day. So you can select whether it's, tomorrow, maybe it's for an entire week or a custom time period, for even an entire month if you wanted to do. Probably going to be less common, but really easy to do that. So I can just do next week, for example. Let's say that everybody's going to be off for that particular week. Super easy to do that. So I'll just go ahead and submit that. And then you can see that it was successful. Perfect. So that's a great question. And I love that tool. It'll definitely save you some time when it comes to scheduling your service providers. All right. So I'll go back here to Courtney that we've set up. So, I think that we're going to wrap up our feature spotlight today. We have done all of the initial setup for our service provider, Courtney Hall here. Of course, once she gets her invite and actually logs in, you'll be able to see when she is logged in as well. So I love that. But as you guys can see, as we went through this today, you can just see that Mangomint makes it so fast and easy to manage all of your service providers and really tailor all of their different settings to meet the needs of your business. So if you've been watching today and if you have any questions about how to add and manage your service providers, definitely, start to chat with our support team and check out our learning center. And if you're watching and you're not using Mangomint yet, book a demo and you can speak one-on-one with a product expert. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, everybody. I really enjoyed spending this time with you all and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye.